Hey, aloha, love tribe. Welcome to the show. I have somebody here with me who I've actually been following for a few years on Twitter. She is an insanely beautiful artist. She's a Bitcoiner and an evolutionary astrologer. This is Monica Bravo. Welcome.
Hi, Valerie. I'm so psyched to be here.
I'm excited to have you. This is going to be a first for me to do a show like this. So we're going to obviously focus on you, focus on your background and everything, but you offered to do a little interactive experience and I was like, "Okay, let's check this out." So
Good. Trust me. Don't be nervous because you wrote about being nervous. I get it, but I'll be holding space for you. So whatever I need to bring to you comes from spirit, and it's something that you probably need to hear today. So that's all.
awesome. Well, thank you so much. Well, so, I remember before I'm gonna why don't you introduce yourself and then I want to talk about the art installation you did at was it Grand Central Station, right? In New York?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about that next. But why don't you let everybody know who you are and what's your scoop and then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of everything.
Perfect. So I'm Monica Bravo. I was born 60 years ago in Bogota, Colombia. That's South America. I'm not a Latina. I'm from South America. I'm joking. I moved to the United States 30 years ago this week. So I
Oh,
moved to the
wow.
Yeah, and I came to New York to be an artist. I was on my 30th birthday, and it was great. I loved the idea of being an artist in New York. I actually did not go to art school, and that make a very big difference because I was not indoctrinated by the woke Marxist agenda that is so much in vogue right now. I
Mhm.
just decided to go and try it out. That doesn't mean that I'm not educated. It means that I use empirical practice to understand my world around. And so I just was making art and I got into the network of working with people and started a practice. And so I've been a professional artist for 30 years. That means that I make a living off my art. But the interesting thing is also that I define like a whole language of art. Those years in New York were very defining, but also my spiritual world kind of opened up. I always been very mystical since I was little, but it was in New York where I actually decided to make it into a practice where I seeked for teachers, and I started practices with the Taoist teacher for 12 years, doing all martial arts, but mostly training my mind. Did Kabbalah, did the whole Zen Buddhism, Zen Buddhist, but the whole shebang. I just wanted to understand the nature of reality. So that's what happened in New York. And then I escaped the matrix. That's what I call New York in 2020. After I had a dream. I actually wanted to leave because the 2010s, I realized that New York had become this place like fake it till you make it. And it was very not it was very phony for me to be there because there was a part of myself that was not really resonating with the inner and the outer, and
Mhm.
I didn't want to be in a place where people are very transactional. Not that I'm not, I like to do transactions and trade, but in the way that you're using people, people are using you as an opportunity. So the whole networking thing was something that I completely pushed away, and that also made me push away the people who had been dealing my work, so the middleman, because I
Mhm.
was asking a lot of questions about value. I'm very connected to the sense of value. So I was asking
Mhm.
difficult questions like, why do I have to sign this contract? Why are you getting so much? Are you going to pay me for the production cost? Like, why are you giving discounts? Who is paying for the. So overall, dealers that started working with me, they loved me at the very beginning, but halfway through it, they always had the same thing to say, like, Monica, you're great, your work is great, but I think you will be better off managing your own self. So that made me smirk all the time because I said, oh, they actually want easy people they can manage. So that made me think a lot about value and what was my place in the world. So I moved here, Miami Beach, after I had a dream, and that was 2020 pandemic, and I just realized that I had a very good time, enough time to inquire things that I wanted to do. Also, I have to say that as an artist, I've been doing a lot of public art. So I am hired by governments, states, universities, subway stations, airports, all kinds of stuff. I've been doing that for a while, and basically they give me a bunch of money that comes from taxpayers. Thank you, everybody who's paying taxes. And they give me the opportunity to create something that is actually what the community needs. So I I involve myself in doing a lot of research about what the community needs. Sometimes I do workshops, and then it takes time because then I have to hire. I make all the designs and production, and then I usually hire people in Germany, Italy with mosaics or glass, or when it's
Mhm.
I do it myself. So that's in in a nutshell. And obviously, I've been doing other sorts of languages. Like I've been interested in astrology since I was little. I bought that book of astrology. I mean, I have a whole story in my book how I came into astrology. It was very funny. And so I started inquiring about philosophical questions when my father died. I was 8, and I did not understand how come the nuns, Catholic nuns, had come up with the idea that he was already in heaven the day after he died. He died from a car crash. So I was like, how does that work? I mean, did you get a telegram? Like, and they wouldn't answer. So I said to my mom, Mom, I know that we're hurting, but I'm not going back to that school of crazy nuns. They were American nuns. They were torturers. So I just left the school, and I went to a school where no religion was going to be taught. And I started reading all the books that my father left in his library were all about philosophy, what's happening out there. So he was also a seeker of truth, and so I identified with his readings. And he used to underline the books. So I started reading what he was underlying. So I was reading Nietzsche, Jung, Schopenhauer since I was like 11 years old. So I always been very connected to wisdom, but I have realized that wisdom is not in the books; it's in the experience of embodying our own truth. So that has been my
Mhm. In your artist statement, you talk about you're not a truth seeker anymore.
yeah.
And is that can you expand on that a little bit here? Because it
Yes.
seems like that's the thread that's a connector there about experiential truth versus someone else's version of truth.
Yeah, so when you're a seeker, it's almost like you're a pilgrim that you decide that you need to live where you're very comfortable, family and land, and you get on a horse. Like I'm thinking mythological. You just go into a horse and you just take a couple of things in your arch in your arrows, and you go. Okay, I'm going to seek something, and you just go from town to town, meeting people, experiencing things, eating different foods, speaking different languages, understanding that culture in different places are different. And so you start seeing a relationship between yourself and the other from a different perspective. So this is a very much aligned with the archetype of Sagittarius or Jupiter, which is the true seeker. We're seeking something. And the whole word of seeking actually doesn't make you arrive anywhere, because if you're in a constant seeking, nothing is ever enough. So I arrived to the point when I moved to Miami Beach that I realized that I had been seeking all my life. I learned how to speak several languages. That's also part of like becoming a polyglot, is like trying to understand the culture of other places, trying to understand other perspectives. And then I realized that it was not about quantity of information, but rather like quality of embodiment. And I had started being more connected to the body, my body, and what my body needed, and how to make sense of it, and how to integrate and synthesize this knowledge that is through the lived experience, that I can actually come to terms with the person that I came to be. So that's when I started writing. I'm no longer seeking, but I'm embodying my own wisdom or truth. Just
And I want to unpack that a little bit, and we'll talk about this with your book because I'm really curious about your book. It's so gorgeous. You sent me the Vimeo little clip. I'm like, wow, this is
thank
really
you.
beautiful. I can't wait to touch it and look at it and all. I mean, I love font and color and just the
Yeah.
way that things are positioned. I was like, whoa, this is going to be an awesome book. I can't wait. I want to go back to seeking and truth seeking because I call myself a truth seeker, and I think there's a couple ways that my brain interprets truth seeking, right? There's truth seeking on an individual, like, who am I? Why am I here? What's my authentic role as a human being on planet Earth, right? And so I believe that that truly does come from within, and that does come from lived experiences, like you're saying. And on the other, definition for me that I think of with truth seeker, since I became a Bitcoiner, I mean, I've always been somebody who's just, question systems and question, the way that the world is working right now, and I just always think, I'm like, that smells like bullshit to me. I've got a huge bullshit radar up here in my nose, and so I think even more so becoming a Bitcoiner and getting into this, um, new way of thinking about life and money and value and energy and community and how are we interacting with each other. The more I look at these old systems, I'm just like, oh my God, like lie after lie after lie. And so I'm always wondering, like, where are the threads that the truth can actually come out so that not only us as Bitcoiners and creatives and whatnot, but the rest of the world can see the reality of the system that they're being, the matrix that they're in. And
Yes.
so can you talk about that a little bit? Because I think there's there might be a little bit of a difference, and maybe I don't know.
Well,
That's how I look
not
at it.
really. And your chart, we're going to talk about your chart because you have a lot of the truth seeking there. It's actually probably the reason why we're resonating right now. We're meeting today because of that. That is really there, and that's probably why you put some attention to it in my website. So, the interesting thing is like Bitcoin has become such an incredible way for me to synthesize all my practices. I call Bitcoin a state of consciousness because it meets you
Hmm.
where you are at.
Yep.
Bitcoin meets you only where you're at, and then it requires you proof of work. It requires that you take an action, human action, to actually enter into that seeking and then find out how you embody that knowledge, that technology, and therefore how we are going to move towards a new civilization using the principles of the basic principles of life. So that for me is how I see all this seeking. And again, I started embodying more that truth when I found Bitcoin and understanding that this was not just technology about money, but it was more about value. I got into
Hmm.
Bitcoin because of I've been working a lot in my chart. I have to understand what value is. And so we are very much taught about, have security. Like when you talk to people who have like steady jobs, they always say, I cannot quit my job because I don't have benefits. And they're thinking about all the things they're going to lack, but they cannot actually focus on what they actually have as a human being, that their own resources and assets that actually can make them become independent, free, and perhaps able to make a whole living without having to wait for other people to give them what they need. Now, I'm not saying that everybody was born to become like an entrepreneur or a
Right.
leader or an artist, because it's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is like we're breaking, and this is one of the things that I find fascinating with Bitcoiners, is that we're breaking the chains of what was supposed to be happening in society, and we are aware of it. Also, I have a theory because I've been doing a lot of charts for Bitcoiners, that we carry the torch of understanding what trauma is, and our trauma that we understand is a trauma that comes from a lot of generations where power was overused in a terrible way. And I'm saying that each one of us also contribute to that trauma. But now our awareness and our light is to really say, we have another opportunity. We're creating this new technology that is actually going to, in a way, repair. I don't like that word too much, but in a way, kind of come to terms that we can make it different this time, because we still haven't made it, but we could. So the idea of like finding our own truth is like when you find your own authentic self, when you are okay in your shoes, when you love yourself, when you integrate your inner child, when you do all the work, you can actually contribute in a way that is voluntarily and happily, and you don't have to create violence. You're going to respect the property of your neighbor. You're actually going to understand that the principles are the most important things. I always say that the principles in Latin, principles is the base, is the
Yes.
beginning. But then look at the principles like the chart when you look at time, and then look at the integrity like the chart of the price. So everybody has principles somehow, but then the integrity is where we're going to bend. So it is important that we understand that we start from first principles, but then each person individually will have to do a lot of work, not only with money, but trauma, emotional integration. And then we kind of like are going to be able to overcome the generational drama and trauma that we came from. And so that's why I think that Bitcoin is such an incredible opportunity. But again, not everybody has to do the same thing. That's the beauty of Bitcoin.
Yeah, and I think that's also the beauty as we think about our personal, transformation, right? And our you're committed to the transformation and metamorphosis, you say on your site. And I am too. I'm a constant, like, how can we keep evolving and growing and always growing? My very first web domain that I bought was called Always Growing. And I
Yes.
wish I would have kept it because I was like, oh, I wanted to go do personal growth stuff with it. And I didn't know anything about setting up a website. And this was back in the late 90s, and anyway, but I feel like as a Bitcoiner, right? And obviously as an artist and as a spiritual person, like there's no destination of like, I'm here, I'm done. It's this constant rabbit hole journey of moving in through, like, whoa, so this part of my life is going to have like a light shined on it now, or shown on it, and I get to heal here, or I get to start learning more about community here. And so I know I've it's been it's just such an unexpected journey becoming a Bitcoiner, because I just didn't realize how spiritual it was, and I never thought of money as like a having consciousness or a spiritual component to it. Like, do you know who Lynn Twist is?
No.
She wrote a really wonderful book called The Soul of Money. And so it was her journey in, this corporate kind of stuff, and then turning into more of the consciousness of money and whatnot. And she's somebody who I definitely want to interview. I don't know if she's a Bitcoiner yet. I mean, everyone will
Yeah.
be eventually. Yeah. It's always a yet, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I want to talk about the art component of your life, because you've done a lot of public art installations, and I'm really passionate about public art, and I'm passionate. Gaudi, when I went to Park Güell, that changed my life forever, forever.
Absolutely.
And I love mosaics. I don't know, you can see it
Yeah.
somewhere. I made that little thing, and I'm not like a hardcore artist. I'm a dabbler artist, but I love art. Obviously, I love creativity. I love self-expression.
Yeah.
And it was just such a gorgeous way for people to come together fluidly, in nature, and it was permanent, and so I want to talk about your public art, and like, what has it been like for you going from maybe, not doing what's, not public art to public art, and how has it transformed you as an artist, and how has it, what's the impact that it's left on the folks who've gotten to be a part of your public art. I'm going to pull
Oh,
up your website and show it right now. Is that okay?
yeah, yeah, you can show the one at Grand Central, and then if you scroll afterwards down, I think of one that is very beautiful is a police station, and yeah, that's one. And
Yeah.
then I think two or three down, there's a police station. It's called Unus Mundus, or even the airport. So I'm going to speak a little bit about it. So,
Oh,
uh,
so great.
thank you. So when I realized that I was completely devoted to public art, that was probably 12 years ago or something like that. I realized that I was going to be of service. I also say that I'm of service because
Hmm.
when you create for a community, you are not creating for a person with a last name and a first name. You're creating a component that is going to be part of their lives, whether they're traveling there, they're sitting down, I mean, it's going to be part of their psyche,
Yeah.
psyche, right?
Yeah.
Their soul. And so I always feel that it's such an honor to be able to be given the opportunity to create something where I can listen about the needs of that community, and then I can come back and just do my channeling and I create the work. I'm very structured when I create work. I'm not like I allow a lot of ideas to come through, and then I have this very discerning mind that knows what needs to stay or not. I love to experiment with new materials, so I'm always the first
Hmm.
to try something new. Now, when you do commissions, people want to make sure that you can make it. People, they give you a lot of money, so they want to make sure you're not going to run away with the whole lot. They want to make sure that you're able to create one idea and then make it happen, because you're alone producing the work. You're giving full like reign of the whole project for a couple of years. So I started doing, I think I remember the first time that somebody wanted a commission, that was in 2005. My gallerist back then, he called me, he says, hey, these people want, I think it's the hotel of there's a hotel, the Peninsula Hotel in Hong Kong, and they wanted a specific job, like piece. I think it's still there in the elevator. And I remember being like, I don't want to work for anybody. I don't want people to tell me what to do. And he laughed one day. He came back and he goes, Monica, let's put it this way. What about this? What about you do what you want and they pay you? And I said, how can I make sure that I do what I want? And then we kind of sorted out, and I said, maybe if I do a proposal and they pay me for the proposal. So that's what happens. When people can still commission me, I tend to have more bigger commissions from like institutions, but I'm for hire for like private commissioners, but I do have some requirements. I want to make sure that the person is going to take care of the work afterwards, because I've been in
Mm.
situations where corporations just basically trash the work just because it's just like, I don't know, I don't understand, but because the public work, they actually take care of it. So I have a commitment to the work. It takes 1 2 years sometimes to be able to make it, and so I'm very in tune with what the community needs. This is really my main thing now. I love playing with color. If I tell you that I started as a black and white photographer in the 80s, you would not believe it. I stayed
Oh
with
my god, no way.
I was a portrait and fashion photographer in Europe, and it's all black and white. I actually was very good. That's how I got the visa to get to this country. I came as a outstanding alien as a photographer. But once I landed here in 1994, I said, I don't want to be a photographer. So I went back to school just to experiment. And I was staying in the loft of a very famous artist. It was a Tablis, and he was a video artist from Israel. He already passed. And the person that we were staying, we were just a bunch of kids staying in this beautiful loft in Soho. And so one of them just broke into like his archives, and we had all these video machines. So I just pick up whatever. I mean, I told him later. I was like embarrassed to tell him, because we ended up being in an exhibition. He goes like, okay, so I sacrificed those cameras because you became this person. It was through his equipment. So I started kind of playing with video, and I really enjoyed the idea of making moving images. But I knew then that I wanted to do multidiscipline. I didn't want it to just stay with photography or just animation, to
Mhm.
experience and experiment. And I was very blessed to have the opportunity to do that, to be able to earn a living, and to have actually people who come and say they want my work. So now I know why, but at the beginning I couldn't believe it. I was like, are they crazy? Because I didn't go to art school. I don't believe in academia. I think that the people that come out, they're just serving the regime, and they're not really making the work that is coming from their soul, from their
Yep.
spirit, and they're just like little cookie cutters things that are I don't relate to that anymore.
Oh my god. I love hearing this because, I agree. I feel like especially art and music, like, I never went to DJ school or music school. It's like, I'm the vibe goddess, and so my whole job is to tune into, like, the energy of the music and the energy of the people, and how does this flow together, and does it light me up? Because if it lights me up, it's gonna light them up, and
Yeah,
so and if it doesn't light me up, I'm gonna be bored, and this is not gonna be fun for any of us, you know? This is not gonna be fun,
if
and
there's
so
no
it's like
joy,
yeah.
there's
And I remember I did some corporate gigs, and I did some weddings just to make some extra money, and it was just like, oh my god, I feel like I'm eating, like, sweet and low saccharin packets of not me. Like, it wasn't me, and I'm like, "I'm not doing this, like, this isn't for me." So, I'm only gonna do it if it comes from my heart and my soul, and obviously, I wanna refine my craft and learn, and it's like, "How does this go together, and do these, keys go well and whatnot?" But it's more like, I want my intuition and my heart and my soul to be the captain of the whole
yeah,
experience, and it sounds like for you, you did that in addition to obviously how does this work? How do I do a video projector here? And how do I map it? And how do I do this
absolutely.
textile? And how do
Because
I make this cool thing go over here on this screen to here? Like, it's so much fun, right? It's
but
infinite canvas.
at the very beginning, I have to say it was very funny. At the very beginning, I had to make a living when I stayed in New York, because I had X amount of money when I arrived, and then I knew. So I did get a job with a photographer. She's an artist. And she's still a good friend of mine. She's like 20 years my senior. Love her very much. And she needed like a studio manager, and I had already had a career as a photographer. So I said, I can do something that is really ABC. So I ended up like making a living and stuff like that. But then that's when I started like experimenting, and I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, so she was doing also wedding photography on the side, and so I was managing her wedding photography. But I was like, she's charging so little. I'm so like bold with prices. Like I'm like, why not?
Good.
So
Yeah.
I was putting it up, and she was like, they're never going to pay me. I was like, just watch. And she had like very high end clients, JP Morgan vice presidents of this and this and that. So I was like, all right, this. So one day, one of these bankers came, and she said, do you do video? And she says, no, I don't, but Monica does. I had just like started making like moving images, and I turned around and I said, like I make a face. She goes, you can do it. And then she said, how much do you charge? So I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. So I said the most insane number. And then And Maxine looked at her like she was like, "What are you doing?" Because this is her client, and and then I go like, "Whatever," like something like that. She goes, "Do you accept a deposit?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then I asked for like half of it, and she said yes. And my ex boss was asking for the minimum. I kept on saying, your deposit is ridiculous. I mean, you're booked like 1 year before, and you're just having what, $200? Are you crazy? You have to at least have. And she wrote me a check, and then she left, and she goes, "What was that?" And I said, "First of all, this was your idea. I didn't want to do this. But now with this check, I can buy the equipment. And then I'm going to call my best friend, and I think she's going to film school, and we're just going to do the video." So we did videos for like 3 years, charged so much money. There were funny videos. No interview. I was like, "We're artists. What are we gonna get? Are you gonna get something really funky?" So we ended up doing this video. I learned a lot to edit and deliver and be doing proof of work, because you were giving a lot of money at the beginning. But after a while, an agent called us, and we had a chat with my friend then, and, "Do you want to do this?" And I said, "I actually don't want to pursue it this way, because then I'm going to stop being an artist." So that's the moment I actually like say, "No, my heart is in the art," but it
Yeah.
paid me off. Like we bought all the equipment and everything that I needed. So computers, everything. So that was a funny
I
story.
know, and, like, sometimes you have those learning chapters, right? And you never know, especially, like, you're like, "Nah, they're never gonna say yes," and it's like, "Oh, shit, now I gotta do it." And then it's like, spirit was like, "Nope, you're coming over here, you're gonna go do all this whole thing," and so, what a cool journey, right? And you didn't
Yeah.
back out and say, "No, never mind, psych, haha," and so that was really I mean, I applaud you for that, to say yes to that and continue down that path for 3 whole years, and I'm sure that it totally influenced your technical ability and all the other stuff that you've, created at scale. Um, let's go back to the public art though. I'm curious if have you had any experiences in any of your installations where, whether it was a corporate thing or a park or the subways or anything where, people are gathering where you got feedback that you weren't expecting?
Like in a bad way, like ugly feedback or
No,
something.
no, no, just more like, "Oh my gosh, this," whatever, any feedback that you were just like, "Wow, I
So
didn't know that somebody would have that experience with my art."
this is the thing. There's it's very interesting. I've written a little bit about it. And I don't think it's in the book, but I've written about like the power of being of service with a medium that you don't know who's going to be the receiver.
Mhm.
Because when you, for instance, create art and you have an exhibition, museum show, and somebody buys it, whether it's the museum or the collector, you end up meeting the person, even if it's for just say thank you. I mean, there's so knowledge about the name of the person, or like with the collection or something else. So there's somebody with the name and last name, or presence, right, and
Mhm.
reputation and all that. But when you do public art, you don't know how many people and who and what and how they're going to feel. So my intention when I create the art is always how I want the people to feel. Like I want them to have a sense of awe, or I want to surprise them. I give them joy. Like I put that intention. So I know that even if one soul passes by a day and gets that energy and that, resonance of what I've been putting into the work, I will be
Mhm.
very happy to kind of feel it. So I have, however, a lot of these works, they have a plaque and they have a name, and, I'm Googleable, very easy. So people find me on Instagram. Sometimes they send me images and they say, "Oh my God, I love that you did the subway station." For instance, I have one in Brooklyn. And they usually tell me there's not a day that it doesn't pass by that I don't discover something new. So, what I say is that I create platforms for people to be able to reconnect to themselves. So that's what the purpose of my work. And so it is not required for me to be a witness of that, because I already did the work. The work is out there. It's a platform. If you want to come back and tell me how you felt, it's beautiful for me to receive, but it's not a requirement. So when I do, and I actually love when people connect back to me and say, "I heard you say this," or "I saw you say this, and it brought this," and I always go like, "Tell me more about what you were feeling," because this is really what I want to initiate and ignite in people, their own sense of power. So this is very interesting piece, because I was called to do like a sculpture or like a mobile, because I'd written when I applied for this that I was going to make one. So when I got hired, this is a very big commission for the East Boston Police Department. They said, "Monica, you wrote that you were going to make some hanging sculptures." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Do you know how to do it?" And I said, "No." Quiet. I'm on a Zoom. And they go, "How are you going to do it?" And I said, "You give me the money, I hire the best people." And they all laughed and they said, "Okay, we're going to get you." So I ended up doing this, hire the best people. I did all the design. I'm very I'm on top of my production, so I know what I want, and this was beautifully done. And so their words like, "This is police department. This is 2020. Everybody wants to defund the police." All my ex friends from New York call me a traitor because I'm working for the state. The whole thing. And I was like, dude, I mean, this is like $500,000. You're going to say no to the opportunity, not the money, the opportunity to create something meaningful for the community room where like there are people clashing. And so I ended up making these beautiful workshops for the community. There, many of them are from El Salvador. This is in East Boston and Colombia. And so I put together policemen and people from the community so we could learn about dialogue. During 2020, I did a lot of workshops with Gabor Mate and Peter Levine. Like I did
Oh
all
my
of
god, I know that. Oh, wow.
all of that. So I learned how to facilitate and hold space and understand what dialogue really means. And so I was training for that part because of this. I started a little before, but I understood. Oh, now I know why I did that. So I ended up having these workshops where we made like mobiles in paper where we were expressing our feelings towards one another, but not the way the woke express their feelings, like, oh, I'm hurt, you shouldn't say this. The other way around is when you empower yourself and you say, I don't feel comfortable with this, maybe we should talk about this later, like, a little bit of nonviolent communication, maybe
Yep,
about that. Yeah.
yep, totally.
Yeah. So I created this, and it was great. I ended up installing it. I think 2 months ago, I got a call from somebody else from Boston. They love it so much. So we're in talks right now to make another thing somewhere in Boston, because they just say every time we go there, it's just like so magical. So I mean, you not imagine this is a police station. I mean, this is all color. So that's what I wanted to give them the possibility to understand that maybe through dialogue we could talk to one another. The mobiles are made out of words, so I use words that are very important for like service. So one is service, the other one is courage, the other one is embodiment, and the other one is vocation, which is one of my favorite words because it means a calling. When you have a calling to do something, then you can channel that energy. So yeah, that's um, that's that piece, and there's mosaic there.
Oh my god.
I do a lot of I just play. That's what I do. Like I just have fun. When I'm in my studio, I'm just having fun. And the book is the same thing. Like everything is just for me to be able to channel joy, color, and to be able to remind people that we're all light. And right now we need a lot of light in this world, I have to say.
We need so much light. We need more color, more light, more connectivity. I mean, I think, I always say that the powers that be are constantly trying to make us numb, dumb, sick, scared, broke, angry, hungry, lonely, tired, and horny. And that way that we can be distracted. And so
Yes.
instead of, focusing on what the truth is inside, which to me is love and God, spirit, universe, whatever, words we like to use, we're being so easily distracted, and our hormones and chemicals are getting hijacked. Our traumas are getting exacerbated, from a fear-based perspective. Wow, this is so insane. Um, so the more that I think we can bring art and beauty and reminding ourselves and each other that this is actually why we're here on earth. It's not to fight. It's not to power over and control. It's to be creative. It's to build. It's to make,
Yeah.
the next iteration of the generations better. So one generation, like our goals. I mean, as a mom, I'm always like, how can I make my life a little bit stronger and more healed so that my children's world can get stronger and healed? I mean, this is remarkable. What did any of the police, like, did you have anybody that was, who got to work there? Or were they just like, I'm so happy that I get to come here every day and see your
Oh
art?
yeah. So I went to install, and I went to install first, and it was like 2022, and then there was a big opening 2023, and I ended up going 2 times. And I had done the workshop, so you start connecting to people. So I became friends with the contractor, and you just like establish relationships with people for 2 years because you're working
Wow.
together on a project. So by the time that it was up, it was funny because I met a lot of people always on Zoom. So the day that I arrived, I realized they all realized that I'm a midget, and we were looking all up, and they were like, there was one was like raising me. I was like, you want to see it closer? And I was like, put me down. And but it was funny. everybody was just so joyous and asking me like really real questions, because a lot of these mosaics, they have images from what Boston used to look like before. So
Mm.
this is in the same area where Logan Airport is. So if people don't know, this area is just pure landfill. And before, there were 5 islands that
Oh,
they were.
wow, looking out there.
And so what I did is like, we're 2020, so I'm thinking a lot about separation and bipolarity and like right and wrong. And so I said, well, I'm going to represent the idea of separateness, and then also the idea of like looking for what is our vocation, our service, and stuff like that, as opposed to just be pointing fingers. So that's why like a lot of the figures and everything, they're very conceptual. I have like an answer to everything. So a lot of images from like the first policeman, and I don't know if you know, but the first policemen in the United States were in the city of Boston. They were called the Watchmen. So I have like the
Mm.
image of the police station. It's been printed there, and so they were discovering. They go like, "Oh, you have this, you have that," and I said, "Yes." So I make these little things there, so people kind of spend time and start discovering little nuggets that I put there, nuggets for them to discover afterwards.
I think it's so cool, Monica, too, just like what you were saying about the bipolar, the like things intersecting, like things that are split, but then they're together. And I've been noticing that on a lot of these, particularly because it's like you can certainly have, oh, cool, this is so nice. It's a gradient and it's going to go from left to right and la la la. But you have a lot of intersections and disruptions, but they still go together, and there's
Yeah,
something about like the
I
flow of that, but it's kind of like, yeah, we're not this perfectly wonderful gradient all the time. Like that's not what
guess through
yeah,
it's through construct that we grow. And I've done a lot of work with Jungian psychology, so it's about the shadow. So where you put the light, it's not about becoming the shadow or becoming the light, it's about integration. So I like to
yeah.
play with colors that way, and then bring a little bit of disruption that then it's going to become harmonic one way or another with through the shapes. And I use a lot of these shapes. These shapes are very precise. They speak, I make a lot of reference to art. So I really like a point in art that was called the Bauhaus, the school of the Bauhaus in Germany in the 20s, where it gathered a lot of architects, designers, textile artists, musicians, theater. It was like really a bubble of creativity. And there's an artist there that later came to the United States, and he was one of the most important pedagogues in art school and everything. It was called Joseph Albers. So during the 20s, Bauhaus, he created this font case that is made out half a circle, have a square, and he made the alphabet. So this word, these figures that you see, they're all part of that. So I'm playing with history, I'm playing with real shapes, I'm playing like I work a lot with time, but I see time as a continuum. But I like to think that I can just go through the tunnel of time and bring some stuff from there, put it together, and they make a contrast between the now and then and the future.
It's so cool. And then, so is this the first person, the first police officer, like you said, that was wearing? Because this looks like it's an
Yeah,
older.
yeah, there's like a police station. Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
god, it's just so cool. God, what a wonderful world you get to live in
I know,
and
and it's
create. I mean,
I
oh,
never imagined that you do this, but then once it came to me, I said no, and then I said okay, and now it's like give me more. But I also like I don't like hoarding things, so I think that all the projects that are coming to me, I'm a deep meditator, so I never ask for like greed, but I said give me what is supposed to come to me, so I can actually grow more. And
mm,
so projects come and they bring challenges, not only materially but like conceptually, or even dealing with certain people. There's always, we're in this world all
sure.
projecting shadows to one another. So for me, the work has become a way to integrate my own shadows, and I use my artwork and now my writing, and to really understand who I am. And I have still a really funny story. I've been with a bad pain all this is because I realized yesterday I have a kidney stone. I'm not going to tell the whole story. This morning I was in prayer and I was like, okay, little stone, tell me what is it that I need to learn, because I know that everything is a teaching. And
Yeah.
it was so amazing. My grandmother came through. She recently, it was her birthday 2, 3 days ago, 120 years she was supposed to be. And she came, she said, there was an image of a river, kidney, water. And then she said to me, shift and move and shake. So I have to move, and I know. because maybe my energy is very stagnated because of the book. I've been staying too many hours in front of the computer.
Mhm.
And then she said something very beautiful, has to do with the eclipses for me and for everybody. She says, preserve only what is needed and let go and with the flow. The water is going to wash it through. So the dissolving that your little rock has to do has all those things and emotions that you have crystallized the last 16 years, ex marriages, ex friends. Nobody talks to me right now from the art world because now I became persona non grata because I'm a Bitcoiner and just like I'm pointing fingers. And so I was angry. And so the stone is talking to me, and I'm like, oh my God. So I always bring an opportunity like this, even my artwork or something, to tell me something about my life and my growth.
Wow, that is amazing. I know, and it's like when you listen, you can obviously connect these dots and understand all the little lessons that are there for us. And I find it interesting, the crystallizing emotions. And obviously we do that. And then we think like, oh no, 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 I'm processing them. But then there's like little fragments that it's like, nope, I'm still holding on to this thing.
Yes.
And then it
Yes.
starts to grow and then it starts to turn into more of a mass versus, okay, it's just out there and it's not attached. And so what are your thoughts on I'm gonna go sideways here, but I think it's probably appropriate. Um, what are your thoughts on 'cause, um, on entities? And, you just brought up your grandmother, and do you believe, like, are there entities out there that, can attach themselves to us and to our energy bodies and to, try to act like little vampires, like little energy suckers?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you something that I learned from my Taoist teacher. Because I grew up in a place that there's some santeria in Colombia, like voodoo. They do
Mhm,
that. And I know stories. I won't go into detail. So I remember learning with him. We learned a lot about energy. He was my real teacher of energy. And so he said something to me one day. He says, look, because we're all resonance, he says, if you want to keep on believing in that, that's what's going to be around you.
okay.
And then if you want to transcend that vibration, you're going to attract other kinds of entities. So they're no longer entities like in the lower realm,
Mhm,
like kind of dark, but then you actually start connecting to the angelic or archangel kind of
mhm.
entities that is really like it's another dimension. So I think of dimensions that we're here in the material 3D dimension, but I can sense, I am very psychic, so I can sense stuff. And when I connect to my higher self, I used to always connect to four guys that I had at this side of my brain when I was little, that now I know that's my consciousness. But I had always these guys like, you didn't do your homework. It's like, come back later. Like he was always telling me those little voices. But now I know that there was a higher self, like this high priest kind of. It was neither female or male, but there were this energy that was telling me always, okay, this is not okay, or this is okay, but not judgmental. But mostly, it was my consciousness that it was actually had a relationship. And I said it was in the second floor because many times I was like, la 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 la, like I don't want to hear that, right? But with time, I embraced them. And so my mother recently passed. She passed like a year ago, and my dad died when I was 8. So I said to my mom before she died, she was like, man, you really waited 50 years after my father died to take care of us. I mean, she was really incredible. So I saw her die. I knew she was getting ready. She had a stroke she was 90 years old. She had Alzheimer's. So I saw her losing herself within the years. But the more she lost herself, the more I was able to connect to her spirit. So I
Mhm.
had joy for the last 4 or 5 years of my life to be able to connect to my mother at levels that are not physical. And I was able to prove that. So is she an entity or not? I don't think so. She's the spirit of my mother, and she was very spiritual in a way. She was very connected to something higher. So she has come through me throughout this year, only that she stopped kind of like a week ago, because I know that right now she's ready to go to another realm. But she came to me 3 times this year, and one of them I was like, Mom, where are you? Because since she died, I was like all the time talking to her, and just loving her so much. I think this is when I understood that love is eternal. Loving my mother because I came through her. And the first time I said to her, that was like a year ago. She died on September last year, and I said, Mom, where are you? Where are you? And she said, call your siblings. Then months later, Mom, are you with Dad? What the hell? Where are you? And she says, yes, both of them were here with you, but remember, you are part of us.
Mm.
Okay. Then 3 months ago, something like that, I said, okay, mommy, this is not fun anymore. You used to be around, and now I have to really call for you. And then she says, you want me to be there with you? And I said, yes. And I said, well, I am within you, as, and so is God. You want to connect to me, you're connected to God. And I was like, well, and that was like a mic drop. I was like, okay, I'm no longer going to ask you. And she says, just trust you. You trust yourself. That's all. So I know that she's around, but the first year it was like that part where you, because I somewhere I read or I was told that when you lose both of your parents, you're on your own. You're, this is like inner and outer authority. So I'm free right now, completely free. And I just want to make sure that I'm free in the right place. But yeah, so I do believe in this, but I want to tune into the light. Even Twitter, like these days, I'm like, oh my God, this is so much trash.
I
I have
know.
to filter because it's easy for me to just go and go like, and send to people like, did you see this? No more darkness. Just yeah, because we can attach that energy around us. That is true.
Yeah.
That
I
is true.
Yeah, and so I'm so sorry for your loss, and I'm glad that she's free from my bonus mom had Alzheimer's, and it was just one of those. It's so sad, when you see these wonderful humans that you care about disintegrate into these people who aren't functioning in a way that they used to get to function, and so um, yeah, and I know, and I think talking with like you nailed it, right? So to me, and same thing with your teacher, it's like if we continue to stay disciplined and focused on the light and on the higher vibrational states of being, and I was talking about this with somebody yesterday, and I've been doing some hypnotherapy sessions lately and just going through a lot of stuff. And I've been visualizing this like pyramid. And anytime something I need to transmute, it's going up to the light throughout the pyramid
Hmm.
and going into something good. But then I was just like, I know it's like, how do I prevent the little things from coming in? And so I was like, I imagine it like, for me, energy, I've done lots and lots of energy work forever. And it's like when I don't practice it every day, it's like I'm leaving my doors and windows open
Yes.
and
Yes.
the critters are coming in and they're making a nest and they're pooping on the deck and they're doing all the stuff. And I'm just like, so it's like, if I'm not disciplined with my energy hygiene and staying in that higher state, then all that stuff can happen. And you just nailed it, of course, with like what goes on in Twitter. Like I had to take these apps off the phone for a while because I kept realizing I'm like, uh-oh, I'm the raccoons are pooping in my cereal every day. Like this is
this
not
is this is
good.
this is also a student. I think in your chart you have something. I will talk about it. It's like, and I also have it. It's like the most important thing is learn how to say no, because we are certain souls. We come with a very open
Yep.
psychic world, so we don't know that there are boundaries. But boundaries, the first thing a person saying in this world that needs to learn without feeling guilt or guilty is saying no. So I'm very good with boundaries right now. A lot of people don't like me right now. I don't care, because it's about my safety space, and I will just say no, no, and no is no. So
It's so true. So I'm gonna plug this really quick because this completely has to do with boundaries. Like, so I went through a giant colossal life shit show, fell apart, 8-ish years ago. Um, and I got these messages of like, okay, you're supposed to write a book, you're supposed to tell these stories. And really, I'm like, what's the basis of it other than just here, this is what happened. And what I kept realizing was like over, and I made this whole 11x code and project. So I'm going to be launching that soon. But it was about, saying yes to my no's and no to my yeses
yes.
over time, again and again and again. And as a people pleaser and a healer and a creative, of course I want to go, oh, la la la. And I just think of like over compromise leads to demise. And so unless we like, boundaries are actually a sign of love, and they're a sign of care for yourself and other, instead of just like, okay, I'll just do it just to try to please you, but it's not really my truth, and so you turn into an accidental liar, when you do that. And so
But the practical ways to do it, and we're going to go a little bit step by step. I'm going to focus on a couple of things in your chart because it is there, and it is something that you're going through. I also went through that, and it's about creating a deep relationship to your needs. And if you know what your needs are and your values are, then you can actually create a structure for what is it that you say yes and no. And it's not a constant, it's now. Like, what is it
Yeah,
that you need now? So, and it's a practice. It's like, as you say, if you meditate, whatever, because you can protect yourself with, like, I mean, I like crystals and I like that, but I don't want to depend on those artifacts only because I want to be able to say yes and no. That's all.
totally, and that's so cool you said that, and that's I'm so curious what this is gonna say say because this whole, thing that I'm working on, this 11X love code, it's about writing your Bushido code, your warrior code, and really starting to get like a me HD in understanding yourself, and because a lot of times we go through life and, these things happen, and I'm like, "How did this get so far over here where I thought I was this person, and I thought these were my values, and I thought," and then, you just end up making these decisions incrementally and sometimes big ones, and you didn't check in with yourself. Like, is this really for me?
Me.
Is this
Hmm.
for God? Is this for my mission? Is this for my vision? Is this for why I'm here? Or am I doing this thing because I need to feel like accepted? Am I feeling lonely? Am I horny? Am I wanting to belong? Am I feeling lack or
Yeah.
scarcity? And so all of those things, like, unless we can come up with that, like, that compass, that operating, system that is ours, it's like we're going to be easily pulled in all these directions, which is what happened to me, and it still does, and I still keep making mistakes because I'm like, well, maybe I'll just kind of hope that this thing changes, and it's like, no, there's the situation that's in front of you, and it's as is, and so
Yes.
if it's good enough as is it a yes? Great. If not, check the because you can't fall in love with a job or a situation or a house or a person that your hope is going to change. Like,
No.
because it may not. And then you end up being like, oh gosh, I wasted all this time and energy. And so I'm really learning the as is, and looking at my decision making, filtering matrix and mechanism with this code. And so this will be fun to chat about. With that, but the Snap Goes the Human Story series is kind of like Chicken Soup for the Soul, and my goal is to use people's stories anonymously from all over the world
Yeah.
that want to talk about anything that happened in their life. Did they get cheated on? Did they have, an abortion? Did they have an addiction? Did something horrible, anything that happened that they want to have a before, during, and after ability to share their transformation,
Beautiful.
and then create an opportunity, of course, because I'm a Bitcoiner. I want to use value for value and then teach
Hmm.
people about Bitcoin because it's like, cool, in perpetuity, we can have lightning splits for all the people who submit these stories. And so if
Mm.
people are tipping them, if we have the books published, if we have anything out there rather than just like a one-time, little chunk of payment, which is what Chicken Soup does, which they're amazing, 500 million copies sold. We get to have Bitcoin and we get to
Yeah.
teach all these new people about Bitcoin and how cool it is. Cause then all of a sudden they've got little, and they're like, ding, ding, ding. Why am I getting, oh, somebody read my story.
Yes.
Oh, like how cool is that? So anyways, if you guys are listening, check it out. You can submit 100 stories as many times as you want with anonymous, names. And I'm doing it. I want people to submit anonymously because if you have a domestic violence story, for example, and you want to protect the children from the ex getting angry because you actually want to get this off your chest, but you don't want to throw that person under the bus, this is a safe place to do that,
Yeah.
and so I think that's a very cool, important thing. Um, so okay, so let's talk about your.
Book.
I want to talk about the book. I mean, do you want to do the
Let's do
book
the
or the
book
chart?
and then the chart. So the book is here. I mean, I just came from the printer. It's very
Yay!
comfortable. My work, and it's made out of. I mean, they can see everything in the website, but let me see if I can show it there. So it's made in a way like I make my artwork. It's ideas that came through. I've been writing all my life, but I never did anything with it. And around 2 years ago, something like that, I met these people at this these groups that I did on that I belonged to online in the 2020s 2021, where I was learning all these things about circling and nonviolent communication, everything. So I met this
Oh
woman
my
called Maggie Goodluck, and at one point, I don't know, she said something like in the group or whatever. She said like, I do transcripts, and I said immediately, I'm always thinking about like something new. I'm like, oh my god, I have so many things. So I just said, how much do you charge per minute, per hour? She goes, I don't know. She had never done it. And she says, I'll do it for free. I said, no, you're not going to do it for free. I will never give you anything for free because I don't want to owe you anything. Like, I know the question of value. So she said, okay, let's try. She came out. I actually put it very difficult for her. I said, come back and tell me a price. It took her like 3 weeks, and at one point I said, like, do you want to do this or not? Because I'm ready to pay. But and she came, and she came out with a good price. So I dumped her a lot of my audios, and she started transcribing. So a couple of months passed by. We didn't never even meet on Zoom. I seen her here and there. And then one day she said she needed to talk to me. And I said, what's going on? And she said, if you ever want to write a book, I would like to be part of it. And I said, a book? Because I wanted to organize a little bit my thoughts. And then she said, you have an amazing book. And I said, okay, deal. I write it, but you co-edit it and you put it together. I'm not going to do that. And so we started working like that. And so she basically took a lot of the writings and she organized it in a way that basically she says the main theme that she wanted us to do was my own path of individuation, which is like freedom from pain, from financial freedom, all that. So I was writing since she got writings from 2020, 2021, 22. So as I started really studying deeply Bitcoin, and then I went to study with Saifuddin Austrian economics and all that, I started writing about it because at the beginning I didn't know what Bitcoin was really. So I started writing about it, and I have a Substack, so I was kind of writing about blockchain and mining, but more like from my perspective, always making a comparison. So I ended up writing. It makes Bitcoin makes an entrance there. I talk a little bit about energy, but I speak more from that state of consciousness that I think is important in how it has empowered me to go deeper into understanding the history of money, the history of like the big like scam that we live in. The art world is a scam. Like I'm completely like telling few of the friends that I speak to me, it's like, you don't understand that everything has to do with fiat scam. Like you don't understand it, so you have to go back. So in a way, this book was always meant to be like a journal that I'm sharing. And so it is for many people because some people are interested in astrology. I do speak a little bit about the archetypes, and but it's not an astrology book. You will, if you want to learn a little bit, there's a kind of like a game thing in the middle where you can actually learn the archetypes. And then the last part is like, if you're not a Bitcoiner, you heard this word Bitcoin, whatever, in with few of the chapters where I speak about what is really essential for me in Austrian economics and Bitcoin, I end up with a very beautiful chapter where I'm always trying to look for historical people that for me they were Bitcoiners without knowing. And one of them is Dante Alighieri. He's a very important figure in the Italian language. So he's in the Middle Ages. He lives around the same era where the Crusades end, the how do you say, the plague was
Mhm.
happening, and this is prior to the Renaissance. And so there's also a cycle of Pluto, like the one we're having right now, that is the end of a cycle, same that we were having during the American Revolution, same when the church broke in two in 1536. So I'm always looking at time changes and seeing how things are repeating or have a tendency to bring the same kind of energy. So I look at Dante from point of view of an artist, and then I use another writer that looks at him at the same way. And so it's very symbolic the way I talk about the banking system from then, how it compares to Bitcoin right now. So it's actually a very lyrical chapter. It's kind of long. It's one of the longest. And it's almost towards the end where I just say, okay, this is the synthesis of, like, if you read the book, you go like, oh my God, Monica is all over the place, but maybe she makes sense. Maybe.
Well, it's such a challenge, I think, to encapsulate like the whole system of the world, and so and obviously everything is interconnected. And like when I
Yeah.
created this 11x thing, it's like, how is everything touching each other in my little mind so that I can like reverse engineer and make sense of things. And so it seems like we're definitely sense makers, like we're seeking how does this fit and how do these things touch each other. And I think it's like, does everything touch everything? And I think it does. There's nothing that's like, oh, this is a silo over here of um, a character of life or a quality of life or anything. It's like everything is interconnected inextricably forever. And so to try to sit and comprehend life through one lens and just being like, no, 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 if we just do everything here, and it's like, no, like, because that lever is going to push this here and it's going to go over here and everything's going to get um
But
impacted.
Not everybody has the same level of understanding. Like some people, this is more like, the two sides of the brain where you have a capacity. I have a very large capacity to see abstraction. That's why my art is very abstract. But there's a part that when I really want to focus is a very, very, very logical, and I can understand and solve problems like that. Now,
Yeah.
there's some people who are very logical and they have very little, like, I don't know, like patience for abstraction. They're just like, no. And that's
Right.
okay because their mind and their cognition is supposed to be developed in a different way. So it's about putting all these things together. And I want to say, like, astrology and Bitcoin are technologies. Astrology is a language
Yeah.
and a technology because it is based on numbers, the position of the planets. And then we have geometry, is actually the study of those numbers in space. Then we have harmonics, which is the relationship of the planets create this, like, resonance or dissonance. That's, they make harmony or not, and they are based on the geometry but also the time. So this is like, it's numbers in time. And then we have astronomy slash astrology. So astronomy was always considered like the validator of these first three of the numbers, geometry, and harmonics. And astronomy is the validators because every day the sun comes back again. Every 28 days, the moon comes back. Every 88 days, Mercury goes around the sun. So we have physically the possibility with our naked eye to see that that's a validation of time. So we're living in these time cycles. Now,
Hmm.
astrology as a language is the logos, the reason of mythology. You interpret yourself in relationship to the world through the lens of mythology. So a lot of people say that it is woo woo. I let people say whatever they want, but I would like people to be more open minded about the idea that these are ancient, very ancient paradigms that they were used by all kinds of people, like the Mesopotamians, the Chinese, the Hindus. Everybody has a relationship to astrology because it's a way that the human being has to look up to the skies and understand what they're doing here. So it's not woo woo, and that happened a lot during the break of the church, when the
Hmm.
church want the people, the plebs, to actually have any power.
And so, I mean, this is obviously you were speaking of this earlier about the generational trauma and overpower and control and whatnot, and certainly some of us have been uh, exposed to way too much power and violence. When people go sideways with that, why do you think? Like at some point in our evolution as human beings, right? Like we're obviously animalistic in many, many ways, right? And we're tribalistic, tribal in many ways. Uh, do you feel like we're ever going to get to a point where we get to have peace and harmony and coexist because we're getting access to different types of truth? Or is it going to just take such a long time because maybe our brains over time have to keep just purifying all the toxic trauma, that's stored in our cells and our tissues? As Peter, I think he says the issues are in the tissues, right? And so Peter Levine. And so um how are we going to evolve? I mean, is there a way to fast track evolution into a more peaceful world?
Well, that's a good question, but I can answer this two ways. It's like, okay, we're all evolving every day, all the time. So evolution is not a destiny; it's a process.
Yeah.
So, like, let's say that there's no world peace, which is unfortunate, but there's other things that are happening even without world peace. Without it, we're evolving because we are responding to it. So in a way, every opportunity is an opportunity for you to have a change, a transformation in your life. Now, that being said, it's not a fun place to be when people are killing each other. I think that the fundamentals, again, the principle of understanding what is needed in a civilization is really, you have to start. And I really love what the work of the Austrians in that way, through Mrs. Rothbard, Hoppe, and now Amus. Like, these people are really bringing the core of what we need is to understand that if we do not respect our bodies and we don't respect the body of the other and the property of the other, we will always be in a state of violence because we're not respecting the main minimum. So I don't know if we have to, like, literally kill the whole world to realize, oops, or say just before the oopsie, say maybe we should do that. So I don't know, but I'm only going to say one thing, and I don't want people to get scared or anything. We are at the very end of a very big cycle, extremely big cycle. People have been talking about this. We were born for this. I say we have little time. Now, I don't want you to be scared, but it's more like, okay, get your engines going. So we have very little time from here, and then we have another eclipse next Monday, Tuesday, until January to really step up with our courage to go and do that thing that makes us feel alive, whatever that is. Don't worry if you lose your job. Don't worry if your wife leaves you. Don't worry if you lose what you think that is most important. What is most important is that you stand up with your truth and lead your life with truth, because we're going to be eaten otherwise. And so then we're going to enter into a period that is going to be, I mean, if right now this is jarring and confusing, what is coming is shit show. It's like, so I am very practical. So I say, imagine you're on a boat on a river or the sea, and it's very foggy. We cannot really see truth. You see what's going on right now. We don't even know what the truth is. It doesn't matter. What you have to trust your instinct that you can navigate to the other side of the shore. Now, if in your boat there is a drunk person that is going to rock the boat, you must boot this person out. So it's also about putting boundaries and saying, you did not do proof of work, you're not here. There's no freebies where we're going. This is all about sovereignty. And sovereignty means understanding what freedom is. If you ask me what Bitcoin is for me, I say Bitcoin for me is the ability for me to actually practice my own sense of freedom, because that's the only thing that I want in my life. Now, we're going to have, I've been receiving some dates and I corroborate with the astrology. We're going to have a very big event happening twice at the beginning of like May next year or June. We're going to have Saturn, that is like the definition of the reality, meet Neptune, that is the exactly the opposite. It's spirit, there's no definition. So they're going to meet at the very end of Pisces, which is the very end of a very big cycle. We're dissolving, forgiving, surrendering, but also there's like a lot of drugs, alcohol, denial, because they all come in pairs. And then when they meet again, February 2026, they meet at 0 degrees of Aries, which is the universal point, beginning of everything. So we will have, if we want, we will have the possibility to be based people, all those that we did the work. But now, don't worry about the group. If you are doing your thing, you're going to resonate and people are going to come to you, or you're going to be meeting the right people so we can build together. It's not about holding hands, but it's more about accepting who you are and going with it, with your heart, with your soul, with all of it. We're here for this. I'm very optimist, actually, but there's a lot of work to be done.
There is a lot of work to be done, and I mean, that was a whole bunch. I'm like writing all these dates down. Like, what do I need to know?
I let you know. No, I let you know. And there's a big eclipse. I got like downloads. I get very precise downloads all the time because I ask for them. I do this meditation that is really working. That is the getaway tapes from the CIA. Oh,
Ooh, I know some other folks who are doing that. How's
no,
it going?
Valerie. It's like
Whoa, okay.
not for everybody. I had the other day somebody said that they thought they were spooky, and I said, well, if you don't resonate, don't do them. For me, it's been like another port. I've been doing meditation for a long time. This is like, okay,
Yeah,
you
me
want to
too.
go to another level. It's because it's very precise, and so it has taught me how to self hypnotize myself and be very precise about things. So I do ask things very precise, and I get the information. So quite amazing. So I did get some dates, and the date that I got that was really striking me, that was beginning of this year. There was a number. It was 1 4. I do a lot of numerologists. It was 1440, and that's the amount of minutes we have in the day. So I said a day, and they said it has to do with days, but it's not a day. And I said, oh, 1440 days. Yes. So I looked. I always look at astrology, and it was January 26, 2028. There's going to be a huge eclipse that is going to really be very impactful for the United States, because the south node of the moon is going to be together with Pluto, which is transformation, and Mars and other planets. But the funny thing is that that is exactly the point of my ascendant. So my chart and the chart of the United States is very connected. My
Okay.
911, it was connected that day to the day. My destiny and the destiny of that thing was there. It was not the day for me to die. The pandemic was also very important for me, because doing those numbers, I said, okay, if I go forward, it's going to be 2028. What happens if I go backward? Boom, beginning of the pandemic by the day, exactly. So I listen to those things because they're giving me clues.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, I'm so curious about, all of these things, and I'm nervous. Like, I've been, and I told, so I said before we did this, and I put it in a couple, in the email and social, I
Yeah.
was like a little nervous about this. I have been somebody who, the random Sunday, whatever, go look at the horoscope thing, but I've never really, and my ex-husband's ex-fiance gave me like a chart book thing that I just kind of flipped through and I was like, I don't know. Cause I have something in my mind that is resistant to any of this because it's like, oh, well, what if Monica plants a seed and then I make it come true because she said
Oh,
so? Like, what if it's like, oh, you're going to have some bad thing happen on,
oh no, no, no.
March
I don't.
5th. And so I've always been a little like, I want to have sovereignty over that stuff. And so help me understand how I can not feel like, not, I mean, you did, obviously you talked about science and math and numbers and harmonics and whatnot. So let's go.
Yeah, go ahead. So this is the thing. So astrology, the day you're born, we have certain planets. I mean, all of them in a position. So they are also in certain degrees. So they carry an energy there, and this like signs and then houses, which is the placement in the chart. They carry an archetype. So the way I read this, I learned evolutionary astrology, which is a astrology that uses the Trinity to be able to synthesize A and B, and then C happens. So it's very in tune with Jung in the shadow. So when
Okay.
you read the chart, you start with the planet Pluto. And Pluto is this desire that the soul has prior to this lifetime to come and to evolve. So let's say that that's the floor plan. Pluto's like, okay, you're not gonna. So when I look at your chart and I see, and then I'll send it to you. Like I see that you have Pluto in the middle of the sky. When you were born, it was there. This is a very powerful, very very powerful position for a planet. It's in the sign of Virgo, and it's in the 10th house right there. So in a way, you come from lifetimes where you have been a very prominent figure of authority that was on top. You also have Uranus next to it, but whatever happened in other lives that you were also involved with, things that needed to be connected to seeking truth, religion, philosophy, church, something like that. So, what I feel, and it's not that it's true, that energy that probably part of the trauma that you bring is that at one point, this position of power, because it's, let's say that you're in a position of power, but you're misinterpret, or the whole purpose of the power is not done with good faith in a way, because you didn't make good decisions, not because you're a bad person, but because you oopsie, you didn't see what it was coming. As I also see that you have a moon and Sagittarius in the first house. So there's a tension in your chart where you have a power struggle between your freedom and your sense of purpose. So, and you had it from before and now. So the most important for me to tell you here is that it is very important that if you recognize that the most important thing for you is freedom, you have to know that if you don't make a structure of those values and needs, you will always have a struggle of power, because you won't know how to use that power, because you're actually kind of like giving in because you don't know how to have leverage. So I said before, like Pluto, the bipolarity of Pluto is Taurus, is Venus. And so Venus is all about I listen to my needs, I listen to my values, survival mode. But then once you know what you need, then you can have leverage to be able to go and trade off your space, your food, your love life, whatever. You become a very equipped trader of your values. But when you
Mm,
don't know how to take care of that, then you're always in this like mode of unconscious manipulation, because a part of yourself, you have the moon in Sagittarius in the first house. You're very individual and you're looking for your freedom. Your freedom is over above everything. But when you feel confined by authorities or your own even doing that, sometimes you kind of put yourself in that situation, then there's this struggle because you want
yeah.
to break free. And then you have another planet there that is at the opposite, that they were in mythology, they were sister and brother. You have Demeter, which is the mother of Persephone. There, she's opposite in your chart. She's in Pisces, so she's this very like almost like victim mother that doesn't understand why there's this struggle, and she wants to go and save the daughter from her brother that snatched Persephone. And so but Demeter or Ceres, she also gives the opportunity for you to, with your like ideas, you have very active mind. With
Yeah.
become no, but it's good. It's you
It is
because
good.
yeah, it's good because it's your destiny. This is where you're going. So you're the way you're going to feed, because Demeter ends up becoming like the personification of the seasons and all the abundance that the seasons can provide in terms of food. So that's why the word cereal comes from ceres. So in a way, you need to really plant a lot of seeds in your spirit. What makes you feel alive through your own curiosity. So you're married to your curiosity
Yeah.
because you already come lives, a lot of lives of wisdom. You were already a priest. You were already imprisoned and not free from like your ideologies. Like you were already with dogma and all that. I'm not saying it was a right or wrong thing, but you were already struggling. And perhaps some people got involved. Like you couldn't find how do you call that, like a balance between the needs of others and yours. And so let's say there was like something happened, so you're coming back here, go like, okay, first of all, no to self. I want to be powerful, but I'm not going to give away my power unless I don't have my freedom. So you're kind of finding a balance, and you're learning to trust so much your intuition. But sometimes your intuition gives you like let's say when you're overcritical. Are you very overcritical with yourself, or you were at one point in your life?
Oh my god, yes, I'm a self-flagellator.
Yeah. So this is your deep shadow. So in a way, there's a like one way to work with that energy, because you have your past lives like being very critical. And criticism is beautiful. Criticism and the word crisis kind of like they're together. It means that you see that something is not correct, and so you can actually bring like something to repair it, or to correct it, or to do something about it. But when you actually just stay with the part of shaming yourself because you're not good enough and you're seeking perfection, that's when it becomes detrimental, and
Yeah.
you're moving backwards. And so that's when you're not using the wisdom of your heart that you already earned in past lives, because you're just too much time spending giving yourself a hard time. And you also have Mars in Taurus in the sixth house. So you have a tendency to start like always criticizing yourself first. You're like, I don't have this value. So one of the things that can help you do this to integrate is actually when Pluto needs to integrate itself, it has to go to the other side, which is home. And in home, I want to ask you a few questions about when you were little. So you are a very individual person that comes here and it wants to shine so much as you're individual. You have an Aries sun, which is very beautiful because Aries is all about your individuality. You have Mercury there, but you also have Chiron. And Chiron is the most sensitive and vulnerable. It's the wound. It's the wound that we carry. Now, this last years and now with the eclipses, you've been given the opportunity to actually work with that wound, because it's all about like maybe when you were little you didn't feel you had the courage or the support to actually be your own individual and speak up and devote yourself to all your creativity. You're a very creative person. You want to really out there, but I don't know if there was one of your parents who was saying that it was more important to have like a security, or have you done your homework and you're too much in the sky, you're too much in the imagination. Tell me a little bit. Or you have like a mother that it was very disconnected from your needs. Tell me a little bit about growing up in your home. What was it like?
All of the above, exactly what you said. Like, my father was like, "Oh, you're gonna, why?" I was the only person who ever went to college and wanted to go, live my life and get a career. And he was like, "Oh, you're gonna be barefoot and pregnant by the time you're 18. Why bother?" And so very, very negative about my dreams and wanting to go make a difference in the world. And my mother was very, they divorced. She wasn't home much, and so just I had to grow up very fast at the age of 10. But prior to that, even I just remember like her favorite phrase was children should be seen and not heard. And
Wow.
that was so sad, because it was just one of those like, don't speak up, don't ask for anything, just go over there and do what you're supposed to do and don't be a burden. And so those two things. And I mean, I love my parents so much, and just like I did the best I could with what I have, and they've done the best they've could with what they had at the time. So there's that, but I know that there's still just that little thumbprint in a sculpture of our soul that happens to us as children. And so yeah, so that yeah.
Yeah, and that's why, for instance, trauma work is really important. Like I've done, enough work with Gabor, and so it's a part. And I say this is because you have Saturn in the fifth house, which is a house of creativity, children, and play, joy,
Mhm.
spontaneous. You want to be spontaneous. You want to be in the now. You want to be like completely spontaneous and say things, however, and then people are just going to love that because you kind of like that. But then that sense of vulnerability that you had because you didn't have somebody that kind of you felt that you were unappreciated, and probably was true. I'm sure, but what the lesson right now is, or the opportunity rather, is that you need to become your own mother and your own father in terms of authority. So authority is a very important word because it means that you have mastered some things. You mastered the ability to parent yourself, invite the inner child. I've done a lot of inner child work
Mhm.
is beautiful when you invite little Valerie. She's
Yeah.
3, 4 years old. She's a crazy little girl that is making drawings everywhere. She's driving everybody crazy. She's all about herself. She's talking and da da da. And she wants to do this and she sees things and she's like jumping and everything. And everyone's like, shut up. Don't do this. That's not going to work. And so she's devastated. So I don't know if you've done any inner work where you invite her to your heart. You actually take a picture of yourself when you're 3, 4, and live with her for a while, and then she will never leave you. And that's the, I mean, hopefully you've done that already in another way, because it's not the only way technique to do it, but it will lead your life fully, because that is the inner light. It's a life in you since you were little, and the one was not given the opportunity to be creative, because you're a very creative person.
Yeah. I know exactly the picture I wanna get. It's funny, I
Yeah.
in these hypnotherapy sessions last week, she was like, "Val, you need to go because 'cause we're doing parts work right now," and she was like, "Your next job is to go get a picture of yourself as a child and carry it around with you," so, like, I'm going back tomorrow, so I'll go find this one picture, and of course, I don't remember a ton of things before the age of 10, but I do remember, like, I used to like to put on dance shows for my family and for my stuffed animals, and so I would be like, "We're doing a show," and I would put on a show, and there's just a hilarious picture of me in some ridiculous little outfit as a little kid, and yeah, so I know I wanna let her come out and keep playing and not try to be too serious, so yeah, thank you.
And transits. I have a whole PDF that you can read later, but I'm going to talk about the transits a little bit. So I always laugh when I got readings with people that randomly they call me a day, and then I look at the chart and it's like everything is written that there was a message for you. So we have these eclipses are, and probably since April, you've been feeling a big shift in your life, and you probably don't know where the direction is, like per se, but you're driving anyway. You know what I mean? It's like people ask you where you're going, you go like, doesn't matter, I'm on the road. Like you already know that it's the process and not just the destination. That doesn't mean you're not going to get or accomplish. I didn't say that. It's just the way that you're trusting more. The ability to trust yourself before trusting others, because you did in your chart, I see that you have a capacity sometimes to make let's say decisions that are not very clear, because you didn't know how to trust others, because you were not given the light. So when parents don't give you attention, we start feeling that we are doing something wrong, so we tend to overextend ourselves so we are loved and liked, and then we make decisions that actually are not the best, and we choose wrong partners and all that. But with time, and with work, then you realize it's like, okay, maybe I was looking for something outside of myself. The seeker was outside and not inside in the heart or embodied. So
Yeah.
what I in the chart right now is like, there's something very good. It's like Saturn, which is the father, the structure, is also the support. Let's say that you had a great father, or somebody, or an authority figure that says all the time, like you come and you say, I did this, and he says something like, wow, Valerie, this is great, I love when you do this. So he's giving you some sort of like recognition, and then he says, but make sure that you go and brush your teeth. You're not going to hate your father, because he's already seeing you for your light, but it's also
Mhm.
reminding you that there's a structure, because otherwise you're going to grow up ugly with yellow teeth. You know what I mean? So that father is a very important, or the mother. We have a structure. So we have Saturn, and it's been the last few months, it's been going through your north node, which is the direction of your life that is all about being curious and merging with the curiosity of your spirit. Your spirit is coming out and saying, do not judge anymore, let me be. I know what I'm doing, even if I don't know what I'm doing. And Saturn says, everything is great, Valerie, but we still have to make a foundation. So I had a dream not long ago, and I'm going to give it to you because it will relate a little bit. It's like I had a dream about if you are going to build, let's say you're going to build a bunch of channels in a piece of land because you want to like divert the water that is raining, and then you're going to do like under the earth, under the soil, channels. So I had this idea that if I want to like spread the energy, flow of energy, and contain it, maybe there's a place with the energy and the water is going to be contained for later time.
Mhm.
um, and it was this beautiful image. So because I was asking how to do with this energy that is so structural, but at the end it's in Pisces, so you can kind of, it's like the magic wand. Oh, we can create this, but you don't know how to use it, and then you end up asking for the three wishes, and then by the fourth, it's like, no, you asked already for everything while you were playing with it. It's a little bit about making like a strategy. So there's a big opportunity right now in your life to create a strategy about like how you want to channel all this flow of energy in ways that with time are going to expand in something that is very useful and meaningful in the way you relate to the world. And a lot of it has to do with curiosity and things that you fancy, things that, I like that. Because long term, you're going to build, because Saturn is about, again, to support, you're going to build a structure that is not so loopy. Because, having the Pisces in your chart, it could be loopy in the sense that you're okay with this, but sometimes it's like, wait, we need a little bit of order. So you're given the opportunity right now to have a little bit of order, but it's not constrained order like the one you had when you were growing up, which was like almost sterile. There was no input. Here is different. Here's like it's asking you. It's like the father in you, the inner, the outer authority saying, "What do you want in life? What do you want the next 5 years? What do you want the next 10 years? How do you want to be of service? How do you want to have fun?" And then you make a list of your needs. Oh, I need this. Da, 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 da. That's why I think low time preference is so important, because then you start really making the right list of what is needed. Because these eclipses as well, they're falling exactly on your Chiron. This is your wound and your sun. So this is a beautiful opportunity, Valerie. The last time you had something like this was 18, 19 years ago. That you probably open up something that you're closing right now. And this is an opportunity where you give yourself the light, you give yourself the courage. Also, Chiron is on your Venus. So you have a lot of planets right now. South Node is on your Uranus. Today, Mercury is on Pluto. So I'm just going to try to synthesize all this. So basically, the chart is saying you're ready. You're more than ready. You'll be getting ready. Now it's time for you to sit down and plan like an adult. Things have happened to you. It's not, we cannot blame people. This is one thing that we have to get away in society. Things don't happen to us.
Yeah.
That, oh, that happened to me, this thing person did. No, you allow that to happen because you didn't know how to do it, you didn't know how to say no. So when you acknowledge and you become accountable, then you
Yeah.
understand, oh, this is the power I have. I have the power to say that's not happening anymore. I say no. So the whole world is right now going to show you a lot of abundance. And when these two planets move together, that I told you that they're going to be, they're going to create a new reality in the house where you called home. And it's not literal home, like what makes you feel safe emotionally. You're going to start feeling that safety so close to yourself, but your safety depends on your individuality, your freedom.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
It totally makes sense. Damn. My brain.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm just like, yes, since April, shit has been completely disintegrating. And even prior to that, but April was a huge month. I had a massive panic attack. I had to call a whole bunch of girlfriends when I was on a boat in the middle of the ocean with somebody who I'm not with anymore, who was part of this disintegration. And just knowing, like, I just felt it, like something's shifting, you know?
Yeah.
And so, anyway, but everything you said is so spot on. It's crazy just as far as being free. That is ultimate priority for me. Don't tell me what to do. That
Yeah.
that's my jam. And yes, I think if it was just me wandering around Earth, I could be in like little la la land with all, like you said, in the Pisces vibes, but like I can't be in service if I'm that way.
Oh,
And
no.
I yeah, and so for me, I understand, and that's kind of why I think I've been so attracted to this code and putting this together, because that is that structure, that is that strategy, that is that the container for me to have better decisions and have more strategy, you know, and not just
Beautiful.
have, oh, here's an idea or here's this. It's like, no, here's a roadmap. Here's a repeatable roadmap that's got fun and play and celebration and community within it. It's not just here's my checkbox of shit to do and my OKRs and my KPIs and all the stuff that I'm supposed to do as a business person. And so how can I make that and then have self accountability and self leadership in addition to friendship accountability, and making it fun to get shit done,
I love it. I love it because it is through like creating these structures. And right now, your progress chart is Capricorn is the main. So Capricorn
Good.
again, father, and it's like the structure and it's time. So it's maturation. And you do have also right now you have Jupiter on your Mars. So I wanted to say something like you did feel the big change in the last year.
Yeah.
Some you became a now you're a Gemini in the progress chart. So have fun, man. Like that. This is the goofy time of your life. It's like if it's goofy, it's good. If it's silly, even better. You know, like who has a Venus in Gemini? I have it too, and that's where your Mars is right now. Elon Musk. He's the most goofy person in the world,
Right.
and he's serious. I love his jokes because it's like I totally get it. It's like, of course, because that's the kind of goofiness that I have and got me in so much trouble. So if it's goofy, that doesn't mean that you're not a serious person. That doesn't mean that you don't do
Yeah.
things for serious. But we cannot take ourselves so seriously.
No.
Yeah, but that energy is actually allowing you to flow into a state of like, oh, I bring the curiosity and I move forward with this sense of wonder, and then I can actually connect to something that is very spiritual because your spirit wants that. Your spirit has been many lives already too serious in the bibliothèque, how to say, the big library, scribing the Bible. You don't need to do that anymore. You don't need to go and be a priest and then get, because you have past lives where you were either in a nut house or in prison.
Yep.
And
That sounds familiar.
that becomes so important. So you're taking time right now to understand how the world works because you don't want to do the same.
Wow. Yeah, no. And I don't want the same for others too. And that's what's really like for me, like I think I'm of course self-healing, I can't go help and do anything on planet Earth unless I'm whole, unless I'm working
Yeah,
from a high
can't.
full tank. We know that. We know the whole thing. But it is something that is just after going through what I went through 8 years ago, um, I had such an arrogance about me up until that point that
It humbles.
"Oh, you're depressed, you feel anxious, you're feeling out of control, like, just get it together, like, put a smile on," and I didn't have enough empathy, and I didn't have enough compassion, I think, and I always just had this fixer mentality, like you said earlier, because that's me, like, "Oh, if I see something, oh, let's make it better, let's fix it, let's do the thing," and I didn't marry that with empathy and compassion, and really getting in tune with the other, and so it was a perfect experience for me to have to go through that, and I did go to, uh, a nut house, a mental hospital. I went to rehab, I went to these
Yeah.
places, which to me, it's like, wow, what a gift. What an absolute gift. It wasn't actually one of those places from historically where they tied you up and you're just thrown away because you're not operating the way that people expect you to in civilized society. But, it's like, people give you flowers if you break your arm, right?
Yes.
Or, "Oh, I'll visit you in the hospital. You got a broken leg, something happened, you had a heart attack, da 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 da." But when you have a mental breakdown, nobody's bringing you flowers.
Nobody goes.
Nobody wants to see you. Nobody wants to talk to you. They want to talk about you behind your back to each
I'm
other.
so sorry that you went through that. That's
It's
terrible.
okay. I just it's but it helped me realize, like, holy shit, there's a whole thing that's happening out here, and all the folks that I got to meet in rehab were like, there's a billionaire, there's a CEO, there's a teacher, there's a mom, there's a nurse, there's a student, there's a hairdresser, there's a truck driver, there's a yoga teacher. There's all these people that have all these different things that they had enough compounding issues that they snapped and they
Yes.
collapsed. And so nobody, nothing in nature is immune from collapsing and snapping because of enough pressures and enough external things. And so, for me, like recognizing, wow, if that could happen to me and all these people, everybody's at risk, and if we don't have certain things that we can do, on a daily basis to stay, trying to be in that higher vibration and trying to understand ourselves, know thyself, so that we can be up here and not in this like toxic soup hell, so that we don't collapse, so that we don't have to leave our children for a month, and so that we don't lose the things that are precious to us. And so
Yeah.
lessons are lessons, right? And I say lessons and blessings, but um I think it was an important time of life, and it's shifted my desire to want to even be more in service to people in this way, through play, through fun, through
Yeah.
creativity. And it's like, okay, a little bit of structure in there too, that you have a daily practice and meditation and whatever it is that works for us. So it's
I
just
think
such a wow.
I
Thank
think I
you.
met you. Thank you for that. I think I met you and you gave a I think in Miami 2023 with Natalie Brunel, and there was the thing in the glasses. I still have them.
The heart
I was
glasses, yeah.
yeah, it's like it's so awesome. It's like your energy was just like and it was beautiful to see. It was my first conference because I started volunteering only a year ago, and I wanted to come to the space of Bitcoin like with curiosity as well, with not any pretense or saying, I didn't want to do the New York thing where you just go like, oh, this is my car, like no, just wanted to be. And so I did sign up for that, and I was having so much fun just seeing your sense of joy, and I thought, oh, this is great. So there's space for this in Bitcoin because I didn't know what I was going to encounter in Bitcoin. You don't know, like a, I don't know, suited man with those cases. Like I had no
Yeah,
idea.
cryptography bros and
Yeah,
hoodies, and you're like, "How do I fit in here?" Yeah.
yeah. But that was like, I was like, oh, okay. And then I think I saw you in LA as well. Like we caught, like you were DJing, and I was like, okay. So, but I don't like try to define people. I feel the energy, and I let the energy kind of like fall into place. And then right now, for instance, that we're talking is like, oh, okay, now I have an experience with her. And obviously I've listened to some of the podcasts and stuff like that, but I didn't have a like first to first experience. And I only wait until then to just actually have a something that is in my heart connected, because other than that, it's just a perspective that it could be skewed depending if I had breakfast or not, like. So that I love your energy and what it brings to the space, and also your willingness to actually offer space for other people to heal. I think is uh, so much because of your own predicament as well. Like I also went through a lot, and so I think we all do, and it's so beautiful to just be able to be vulnerable and tell people like, hey, we all have a thing. It's okay to talk about it. It's really okay to talk about it
It
and
is.
to open.
And it's shame. I mean, shame keeps us from speaking up and using our voices, and the worst thing that shame does is it doesn't give you that permission to raise your hand and say, "I need help." Like,
Yes,
"I don't
yes.
got this." And because we're so conditioned to, think that everybody else has got it together and, "Oh, wow, I'm the one that's kinda crazy, so I'm just gonna hide over here and not let anybody know how fucked up I really am." But it's like everybody goes through phases of I've got it, I'm rocking, and then there's phases where it's like, I'm so not rocking. I'm like, I'm not
Didn't
good.
you didn't you like, because in your chart it shows like you're a person that probably also, because what you were told in little and everything, you wanted to strive to be at the top, and probably you were very much at the top of your business, and very executive and all that. But then through the crisis you actually have to confront your heart that is broken in a thousand pieces, and then you discover that maybe being there in the podium, being cool, because it is cool to be up there, but being empty, because you can be on the podium and you do not connect to anybody.
Yeah,
You're not connecting. So I think that, I appreciate that you've done that for yourself. Not a lot of people do that. I think it's very courageous already that you've done that, because this is what you're showing the world, that it is possible. You actually took off your persona. When you have Pluto up there, it's the biggest, and you have it really on top. It's like you're an authority, and that persona, it's a character that you put because that's what you thought and you were fit, like that's what you did, and you were good at that. But that persona is not really you, and the more you detach yourself from who you are in your essence, the more this mask, this character, starts going like, okay, I can do two things: completely forget about it and live this life and become a phony and all that stuff, and then I don't care, or say, okay, this is going to be dangerously like stupid, but I'm going to do it. And then you do it and you go like, okay, hurts, but then okay, what can we do? And I think that you've done it, and it's so empowering to see that. And thank you for doing that, because you did it for you, but you're also like showing up the world that vulnerability is one of the biggest strong strengths that we have in our chart, is where we feel completely broken.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a crazy thing, like, we want to avoid the break at all. Most of us are just like, "No, no, no, don't let the things fall apart," and what you were just saying earlier about, this time period that we're entering where it's like, don't freak out if you lose your wife, or if, you lose a job, or da 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 da. Like, it's okay. Something else is coming, but I think our egos get so attached to the familiar, and we want to have control, and we want to think, we're in control, really is the thing. And it's very disorienting and destabilizing mentally and emotionally and physically, spiritually, when things start to crumble and collapse, and you're trying to just hold it and just be like, no, no shit, instead of surrendering to the collapse, and we think about nature and the cycles of nature. And it's like, certain things, it's like, that's their seasonality. They are supposed to come up, rise and collapse, come up, rise and collapse, etc. And so I think we avoid that as humans, because we want this thing to be here forever the way it is, and I think about Burning Man. Have you been to Burning Man?
I'm
And
not the type. I don't have anything against it, but like I don't
just not
know.
your thing. Yeah, but it's
No,
like such an interesting thing where it's like all the energy goes into this just insane, building and everything, the whole community, the art, everything, and then burning the man too. And it's just this like, oh wow, nothing's permanent, and so, but we get attached to that. And I think that attachment, we think of Buddhism, and attachment is the cause of suffering, right? And so I think for those of us, or those of you who might be listening, who could be going through a breakdown or a loss or something that is uh, very painful, it's like, it's sometimes it's less painful if you can just let it go, like you said earlier, Monica. And so
and seek
it's
help. It support is super important, because sometimes, as you say before, like it's so difficult to just call somebody, say I need help.
yeah,
Sometimes we tend to call the wrong people, and there's nothing wrong about talking to your best friend or your best buddy about something, but these people are not trained. These people are going to
right.
project back whatever they want. If they want to get rid of you, say, oh yeah, dump that. They're not even taking care of you. And if they're also finding an opportunity to just like dump their own stuff on you, it's like, oh, that happened to me and this was worse. And so there's I learned that a long time ago. Like, it's like, if you can seek like professional support, and make sure
Yeah.
that the person that you're working is actually that listening to you, validating you, and showing you a way for you to see where you have to go, super important. And I don't think a lot of people really understand how important it is to seek support at this moment.
It
And
Yeah, and and even for me, it's like, I'm not rich, and it's like, this is an investment for me to go do this hypnotherapy, because I'm doing these layers of stuff that is very important for me to address right now in my life. And so it's just like, anything that you're doing, I think, who's ever is listening, it's like, it's an investment in your wellness. You'll go to the gym, you'll go and buy organic food, you'll go on a trip, you'll go do all the things, or you'll get, Botox or whatever you're doing. It's like, if this isn't up here, like lining up here, all that other stuff isn't going to be as potent for you to be a whole happy person, And so I think investing in our mental health, and people who are trained, like you said, and who do care. And sometimes the reality is, you might have to go through 10 of them before you find your match,
or
and
or if you follow your and I wanted to, if you have like 10 more minutes, we're going to talk about your human design. So it's very
okay.
important to understand that there are energy centers in your body that they tell you. When I do readings, I do astrology, as I did a little bit with you. I mean, obviously my readings are 2 hours, but here we kind of like, we're trying to put it, and then
Okay, yeah,
eventually
well, yeah. Thank
private.
you.
And then but then the other one is like, there are 9 centers in the body that they're defined or undefined, and they show you the energy of how to make the right decisions. Now, you said something before a while back, that you have a very good sense of smell, because you can smell bullshit. Yeah, it is in your chart. You have that channel, that is the
Mhm.
channel. It's called the channel of the fighter. So it's the spleen. You have the 28. You have the purpose, and then you have the 38, the fighter, like the one that will never give up. So you have this like, you have this ability. It's a very individual energy that is about never giving up, because you're so driven by finding the purpose of your life, that you don't give up and you will not give up. Now, these other people go like, whoa, not, I have that channel too, and I know that that's one of my strengths, and I know that when I commit to something, this is it. So but the whole thing is like, if in moments in your life when you found yourself not giving, not putting the real purpose in your life, you know that you're cheating yourself. So for you, the
Yes.
purpose is super important. You have another channel, it's very beautiful, it's called the beat. It's like the identity center. You have the gate two, which is like the, when you're in the correct energy, you actually have the compass of the whole, like the whole world, and you have the energy of materiality going through. So you have like a pulse of energy that you can actually manifest a lot of materiality, not only for yourself but the others, if you are really centered on like finding the right direction. And the direction is something that is not given to you, but is something that is felt, and is an urgency. So you are generator in your chart, so that means that you respond very well to people asking you to do things. But when you end up doing things, it's very important that you are true to what the body's feeling. So if you don't, if your gut says no because you're not going to feel satisfied with it, you shouldn't do it, even if it's all the money in the world.
Yep.
So being being frustrated shows you that you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Frustration is going to be the thing. So that's one of the things. Let me see what other thing. I mean, I'm just going very fast through these things, but they're very important. You also have another channel that I adore, that is hold on here. Oh, what was it? The one, the other person. So it's called you're very convict. You have like an incredible ability to understand what integrity is. So for you, integrity is a very important thing, and so you can actually use the idea of your conviction and have all the energy in the world to go and inspire yourself, inspire others. You trust your own convictions, and you're very independent. You have a very independent energy, and that doesn't mean that you're not tribal or collective, but you are really here to become your own person. The crowd or the family, whatever, like the tribe, they're going to be okay without you, but you're very individual, and individual means that sometimes can be melancholic, because when you realize that you're on your own all the time, you, I mean, happens to me, I go like, anybody else in the world, like what's happening. But at the very end, you go, okay, I need to do this by myself, because this is the energy that you have in order to achieve. So decisions, very important that you listen to your gut, always, never to your head. Never make big decisions with your ideas. You don't have ideas. Ideas are inspirations that come through you, and then you can actually make them, conceptualize them and put them out there, but they don't belong to you. They're part of the creator. Other people are more defined like that. You do have a lot of energy in the lower chakras and your spleen. Spleen is the center that's going to tell you if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. So always follow two senses, your sense of smell and your sense of taste, that is with the eye. You enter a place, and you know one thing, uh, we were not taught to really follow our instincts, and that's why a lot of people fall to predators and narcissists, because we're not really uh, listening to that. So if you go to a situation, and this center will never tell you yes, you go to a place and you just know this is not correct. You stand up and you go. You don't have to explain yourself, because this center is it runs the like, how do you say, immune system. It runs the immune system, and it's always going to tell you when you're not supposed to be in the right place, because it's going to protect you. Now we are overriding that, because it's like, no, what is Twitter saying, what is Google saying? No, when you're in danger, and it's something that is going to tell you immediately, especially when you meet people. Like right now, you meet people even on the internet, and something is not okay, you just follow that.
Yeah.
Follow that. That's the best way to connect to your this is this part of the brain that we had, like the more animalistic. You see, I mean, I love National Geographic, just looking at the wolves and bears, like how they do. Eagles, predators, they're amazing how they use all the senses. So our senses, this is very important, our senses are the most valuable thing we have, because this is our GPS. And our
Mhm.
emotions is another tool that we have to see where we're at. But emotions take time, so we cannot trust the emotions. Emotions is like, they're always making a respond, but we tend to react. So the instincts and intuition that are run by that center are things that are very important to listen to, take care, because obviously you're very intuitive, and so if you follow that, you're never wrong. The problem is when you second doubt yourself. The problem is when you put your expectations onto others, and that happens to a lot of people. You.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like,
I hope you're not nervous anymore.
I'm not nervous. I'm just like, okay, you just kind of went in and said everything about me. It's like, I have gotten myself in some situations recently in the last couple of years that I overrode my intuition and I made excuses and I had emotional stuff that I got attached to instead of what my gut was telling me was get the fuck out, you know? And I always say if it's not a fuck yeah, it's a fuck no.
Yes,
And
yes, yes, that's exactly.
that's
That's ex-
it. If it's not a fuck yeah, it's a fuck no. And recently, unfortunately, which I did a lot quicker this time, I got out of something that was, had lots of great check boxes, but it wasn't a fuck yeah. And it was like, okay, that was a faster turnaround time, so that's good, but it's like I I cheated on myself, you know. I
because
settled because I had, the emotional, like, oh, I liked attention, or I was lonely, or it was sexy,
but
or all this stuff, right? And it was like, nope, this is a fuck no, but I still did it.
yeah, but this is something more than that. It's more like you come with the knowledge of that you know, and you can embody your wisdom. But there's one aspect that is a tension, like it's 90 degrees, that is actually saying, well, in order for you to trust yourself, you really have to go deeper. This is not going to be that easy. So this is something that you put as an obstacle, not because you're doing anything wrong, but you actually put it there so you can actually really understand what it is to trust yourself so you can trust others. I'm going to say that again. You have to learn to trust yourself, trusting others. Because what we tend to do is like, oh yeah, that person is great, but it's like, do you trust yourself? Why? I felt something, but no. No, do you trust yourself? Because then you're not creating an expectation. And this is the difference between somebody betraying you and you betraying yourself. People do not betray you. You betray your own sense of values. You
Yep,
go to right.
exactly.
So that's you did that in your chart, and it doesn't mean this is going to happen, but the more you practice it, the more at the end of your life you go like, whoa, this is a, a hundred. Like I got a medal for this because you did that. We all have that kind of obstacles, challenges, and sometimes if we don't have them natally, we will have them some point when the sky keeps on turning around. Like I was born with a very beautiful chart that there was no problem. So I was like, that can make me very lazy and very arrogant about it. But then middle age, 40 to 50 to 55, I was like, the fuck is going on? Everything. And that's when I was like, okay, buckle up. I'll learn. I'll learn my lessons. So we all have opportunities, and that's beautiful. Astrology is alive every day. So we have every day an opportunity when we wake up to actually make the right choices for what it is good for ourselves, not the other. Never.
How long have you been studying this? Because it is a language, as you said, and it's very, it's complex, there's not just like, "Oh, hi, it's this," how long have you been doing this? And
So
I'll take a couple more minutes of your time. I don't wanna
yeah,
take up too much.
it's
Um,
okay. So I started astrologer like being very curious when I was like 9 or 10. I used to
mhm.
read books, and so I was driving her crazy. So she subscribed me to like a book club kind of thing that you go to the book fair and buy books. And so my mom had a driver for us, not because we were rich, but because she was very practical. So take us to school, whatever. So this driver that ended up being like part of the family, he took me to the book fair. My mom gave me some money and I'm going to buy my books. And then by the end of it, I had already bought my books. And then there's a man sitting down on a table with a red book that where all the planets are. And I said, what are you doing? He goes, I'm an astrologer. And I said, wow, can I have my chart? He says, it's X amount of money. I said, well, let's do one thing. I'll give you what I have left, but then you come with me. I mean, imagine right now doing that.
I know, "Come with me."
Come with the driver, like, yeah. And my mom will pay you when we get home. So we did that. And my mom is like, who is this person? And I said, oh, I'll tell you later, but we owe him money. And then, okay, I'm going to talk to you later. It's like, okay. And then he gave me the book. He thought it was really funny. He gave me the book. And then he said, one day you're going to be an astrologer. And I said, sure. So I did find astrologers throughout, and always
Wow.
very interested in teaching and that like that. I did study two other times with other people, but the what happened is like the way they were teaching, I couldn't grasp it. I need like a choreography. I need a way of like walking through it. And so when I was really, really at the lowest point, depressed after my marriage, broken, everything like not happening. 2016, I prayed every day, please send me something, please, please. I started listening to astrology again in YouTube because I had kind of like stopped having anything to do with it. And then I heard this man speaking to me a couple of times, like he's talking to me. So I remember like I emailed and I said, I need a chart. He said, I was in Colombia. And he said, I only have, I don't know, it was 4 a.m. in where I was. My first chart reading, I was wearing my pajamas in the house of a friend because I was there visiting. End of the thing, I tell him, okay, what's your name? Simon. I said, Simon, can I learn everything you know? And he looked at me, goes like, ah. And I said, we start Saturday. And I just milk the cow and I learn everything because I'm good student. I'm always asking. I have another question. So I studied very intensely, and then I started almost immediately doing charts. So I learned a lot by doing charts as well. I
Cool.
did like Facebook. I said one day I'm learning this. I will only charge $20 by donation. I will read only two parts, and then these people, when I did it, they came back afterwards and they became clients afterwards. So I it was trial and error, and then what happened is like I always been a channeler. So astrology is a language, but then I connect with something that you say whatever, and then I just opens up, and I don't even remember what I'm saying. So it's pretty intense. So yeah, but it's a language.
Wow, it's amazing. You're amazing, and I love, I mean, all the insights and with the human design and stuff as well. That's a whole nother language that is, I mean, that's I'm still learning that. I'm learning all of it. Of like tiny, tiny bit by bit. I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to go this way and start listening and learning and paying attention. So
I can give you like places where you can go.
I want to
I'm
do another reading. If there's more, I might go. I'll hire you to be my you know astrologer reader and tell me some stuff if I need any help.
I can support you and guide you. I love doing that. Like I hold those study groups sometimes.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
yeah, and so I have a study group of human design for like 2 years now. We've grown so much because it's actually really about observation and correlation. You observe what's going on. I guide everybody, but I also guide myself, and it's just growing and growing, and it's so beautiful. Same thing. I do study groups of Bitcoin for younger and for women in South America, so they don't have to depend on the paycheck of the husband.
Oh,
Uh,
it's so important.
yeah, so I'm all like pro freedom in many ways. So I'm like, okay, if you want to be free, you have to be financially free, you have to be emotionally free, you have to be spiritually free, yeah, you have to be based. You know, you have to get out of the system. That's another thing that I'm doing, but I'll tell you another day. You get out of the system, you get out, and you're sovereign as how you came to this world, free.
Yeah, I love that. And wow. Well, I want to share. Obviously, everybody. I want them to come check out your work at Studio of Endless Ideas, and I want them to go follow you on X at Bravo Monica, Monika. Just for those of you listening, if you're on the podcast and stuff. What this has been incredible. I thank you so much for taking all this time. I wasn't expecting this to be this long. Like, wow, you're so generous with doing all of the obviously everything you do with art and making the world a more beautiful place and a place where people can have conversations and like you said feel something in themselves,
Yeah.
and feel an emotional experience. Was it Maya Angelou? She said people will forget what you say, they'll forget what you do, but they'll always remember how you make them feel. um,
Yes.
and it's just like that's was something that we would always say as when I was doing Valerie and the Vibe Tribe, because it was like it's not about being perfect and it's not about this. It's like what's the experience that hopefully us as artists and creators can give others, and it's just it's an experience, a feeling, and so
And
I love.
yeah, and what I want to say the last thing is like, okay, the book is coming out in a couple of weeks, and then I am thrilled because I'm going to start doing the rounds of conferences as a speaker, or
Yes.
so I'm going to start with adopting Bitcoin. Uh,
Yes, good.
Shout out to Efrat because she kind of put me in connection, and so I'm going to do
Good.
one that is about Prometheus and how Bitcoin can be the catalyst to understand ourselves. And so I'm going to talk about astrology, the fourth turning, and I'm preparing that talk, so that's great. And then Gary Leland, which is one of my favorite Bitcoiners out there from Block Boom, just asked me to do a workshop. So I'm thinking about something between Bitcoin and Austrian economics. And so I'm thrilled. I'm like serving as myself, bringing the color and the joy to the space.
It's so awesome, and I'm so glad you're in the space as it is called, I guess, and the whole space of Earth. Um, I love what you're doing. I'm so excited, and I'm so curious about learning more about astrology and human design. Of course, everybody needs to go out and get your book. You guys, you can get the book presale at Studio of Endless Ideas /book presale. It's so beautiful. I can't wait to touch it. I can't wait to see all the things inside of it. And yeah, this will be fun. I want to do a follow up with you and see how it's going after, the book is out, and I'm happy to keep promoting it and
Thank
uh,
you.
get the word out for you. Do you have any art installations coming up that
Well,
we should look
if
at?
people are in New York, I have this beautiful piece at the Grand Central Station, Madison. They just opened up this new place that gets to the Long Island Railroad, and so on that level where you get there, there's 5 screens, LEDs, really really big. And so I made a piece that is 2 minutes. It's a beautiful. It's actually very much based on praxeology. I was very inspired about like what is it that it takes humans to build civilization and then destroy it. So in a ways,
Mm,
and it's buildings that they look like New York, but they're buildings that were never built, made on drawings. And then I have the sky of the Grand Central that is all the constellations going around.
wow.
It's a beautiful piece, and it's made out of collage. So I made all the pieces, and they kind of move around, but they're very like the cloud looks like a 4-year-old girl designed the cloud. So I wanted this, and it's super colorful. I There's one thing I'm gonna say. Like every time that I see my pieces alive, because I'm here making everything from a small apartment. I used to have a big studio, but I don't want to do that anymore. Too much overhead. And when I go and see those pieces, I always cry and cry and
Oh.
cry. I called my brother. He was like, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "It's so beautiful. I can't believe it." And my brother always says, "Do you remember your room?" I said, "Yeah." "You have always doing all these colors. Do you remember?" And I'll go, "Yes, but still so beautiful." So I every time I knew a new piece, I'm the first one that goes like, I thank God. I said, "Thank you for letting me be this channel." Beauty is so important. So yeah.
It is so important. I love it. And you have a special skill, and I love that you are self-taught, and what has come out of you is absolutely remarkable. Like you do remind me of Gaudi, like your beauty and the wonderfulness that you are like, yeah, we don't need to go like this. We're going to go over here and go do this. And it's just like so perfect. I love it. And I can't wait to keep, following all the work that you're doing and being your friend now. Yay. I mean, I hope I
Hey,
can call you my friend. And I
we're
hope
gonna
I see you at these conferences. I don't have anything on my docket right this second, but I'm working on getting some ability to get to some of the conferences. So adopting Bitcoin is magic. It's so great down there. And I just love it's just the energy of El Salvador. Have you been to El Salvador since the
no.
Bitcoin? Oh my God. You're
This
going
is
to
going to
love
be
it.
my first. I love what Bukele is doing. I
Hmm.
just gonna give a big shout out. It's like if they give me the passport as a person that can contribute to El Salvador, although I have to say I love the United States. I have become such a patriot. I understand. I'm studying the Constitution, everything. This is one of the most amazing countries in the world. I'm not saying that it is right now, but the opportunity that we have here to be free is unbelievable. So we have to
Yeah.
protect those rights. We
Yeah,
do,
we
because
do.
this place. Now, I like El Salvador because what he's doing, his program, it's very wide open. Like he really has a concept, so I respect that.
Yeah.
And what he's done is like amazing. So I wouldn't mind contributing, but I will let life give me that.
Oh, my mind, I'm already envisioning exactly where your art is going to be. There's this like center town. It's like in the middle of this city center, and it's got this big like old opera house. And we were looking at doing Satoshi the Cyber Opera there, and doing this like projection mapping music thing, and doing this 12-part kind of musical play thing. But I have a feeling you're going to be doing something down there. I don't know. My
I hope
intuition. Yeah,
I
who
will.
knows?
to serve like that. I mean, I'm gonna call it like in terms of manifestation, like I'm gonna put it out there. But then
Yeah.
if it's the right thing for me, and I'll be very happy to serve as an artist, but also as a Bitcoiner or educator. Like it's I have I mean, I'm not only one thing, thank God. And so and I'm not in the New York mode, like trying to do everything so I can get it. Like I don't do that anymore. Things come to me very differently. Yeah.
I know. Isn't it the best? I know I feel the same way. I'm not just like, oh, I'm a Bitcoiner or a podcaster or a DJ or an entrepreneur or a mom. I'm all of the above all of the time. And I don't have to choose. That's like so fun, right? And so
Yeah.
anyway, and we're like we're all the colors of the rainbow all at once. And so
Absolutely.
because we're light. And so, all right, blah, 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 Val.
Thank you.
All
We'll
right.
talk.
So thank you again so much. You are amazing and so talented. And you guys, everybody, make sure you get out there and follow Monica and support her work and send her a hey. And I can't wait to see you somewhere again soon, Monica. And thanks again. And
Thank you.
everybody who's been listening, thanks for tuning in. I hope this was a great episode for you. And until next time, peace, love, and warm aloha.